at norml.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
In the marijuana law reform movement, the cannabis community is represented by thousands of dedicated defense attorneys fighting to end prohibition and keep us free. The Russ Belville Show visits with the tireless courtroom crusaders in our legalization, law, and order.
Welcome back, everybody. 31 after the hour, and we're dialing out now to Sean McAllister.
Is not available.
And it's not available, so we'll hang up and we'll try this again. But we're trying to get Sean McAllister on the line. He's with the NORML Legal Committee out of Denver, Colorado, and he's working currently on fighting against the 5-nanogram permissible inference DUID law that just recently got passed in Colorado. He's also got some stuff to tell us about their state toxicology lab. Apparently there's been some shenanigans going on there that we need to uncover, so we will get the latest on that from Sean. Hello, Sean. This is Russ from the Russ Belville Show.
Russ.
Yes.
Hey.
Glad to hear you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Just calling you up here for our interview. I'm glad we got you on the line.
Glad to be here. What an honor.
All right. So I was just kind of telling the audience a little bit about what's going on with respect to Colorado's 5-nanogram permissible inference DUID. And I understand that you're trying to challenge that law. I'm wondering what you can tell us about the fight so far.
Well, since it's 10 minutes after 4:20, I'm not sure I'm thinking clearly, but let's see if I can put this into words. Basically what's going on out here has been a 3 or 4 year fight to stop the voodoo science of the marijuana haters who want to imprison every regular pot user who drives a vehicle. And this goes all the way back to 2010 or 11 when the idea was first introduced. And I was a part of a state commission that looked at this, and we had 8 participants in that state commission, and we deadlocked 4-4 and said there's not enough science to justify a 5-nanogram limit. And so that year the legislature failed to adopt it, and basically the story ever since has been law enforcement and biased scientists have been pressing as hard as they can, refusing to give up. I mean, we've called this law the zombie bill that just will not die and keeps coming back until they get what they want, which is to infect us all with their bad science. So, the bottom line is the scandal that's going on right now is the legislature just passed not a per se absolute you're guilty if you're over 5 nanograms, but basically an inference that you're impaired if you're over 5 nanograms. It's basically like shifting the burden of proof. In America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but under this law, if you're over 5, you're guilty until you can prove yourself innocent. So, the haters said, "Oh, this isn't so bad. People can still prove their innocence." But obviously, it's going to be very difficult for them to do that in court unless they have a lot of money and can hire experts. And so, another thing about this law is it's legal apartheid. We're going to have rich people get justice and poor people go to jail, and that's a sick result. But the point here is that the scandal is the state toxicologist, the person that advocated for this 5-nanogram standard, was pushing for it, was at all the hearings. It turns out the health department that runs the state lab did an internal investigation and determined that she's biased, that she is somebody that was cooking the books, that was interpreting science in a way that was intended to convict people. I mean, the investigation revealed that this state lab director who's charged with coming into court and telling juries whether somebody's impaired or not, that she was going back to the office laughing about putting people in jail and making fun of criminal defense attorneys. And this is a woman I had on the stand many, many times who would say these ridiculous things like, if you smoke marijuana 24 hours later, you're still impaired. And I'm thinking, man, that must have been a big joint.
Is there any?
That must have been a couple dabs.
Is there any professional malfeasance being alleged here that could possibly overturn previous cases she was a part of?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what I was trying to say is the scandal is that this report was done in mid-March, And right at the same time, the legislature is investigating this 5 nanogram standard, and the Attorney General and the Health Department refused to release the report. In fact, in one of my cases, they went to court, and I found out about the report. I tried to subpoena it. They go to court and say, oh, we can't turn this over. It's confidential personnel file. And what the outrage on the ground here is that right at the time the legislature is debating this, there's a report saying the main proponent of this law is cooking the science, and they don't release the report. Imagine that. And what happened was we get the passage of this pretty terrible law. So there's all sorts of investigations going on right now of the conduct of the district attorney's offices around the state, the attorney general's office, the health department. I mean, this is a fundamental constitutional right that if you're charged with a crime, you have the right to know about, in criminal cases in court, you have the right to know about evidence that might get you acquitted. And they pretty clearly hid this and covered up this information as long as they could. So that's one thing. All these criminal defendants, there's hundreds of people that got convicted or took plea bargains of DUIs between the report being done in March and it being released a few weeks ago. I think it was released the end of May. So a couple months of time where people didn't have access to this. And, if they would have come to me, I would have told them, look, if you go to trial, this biased state toxicologist is going to come in and say you're impaired. And yeah, we know she's biased, but juries believe her. And that, even my advice or people without a lawyer probably look at that and said, okay, forget it. Let's take a deal. So, there is an investigation ongoing. It is a big scandal. And what I was saying earlier about her saying things like, oh, you're impaired 24 hours later. It wasn't just that. It was that we would ask her on the stand, okay, Miss Burbach, Cindy Burbach is her name. By the way, she was demoted and then subsequently, quote unquote, retired. Just so convenient that really she was basically pushed out. So that at least is a good thing. But we would go have her on the stand and say, Miss Burbach, what's your opinion? Couldn't a chronic user be at 5 nanograms or more at all times? And she would just totally deny, oh, no, that's not possible. Couldn't happen. She would just deny the ambiguity of the science on regular chronic users. And I mean, that's another scandal that's the example of how her bias played out on the stand, that she would, exaggerate the effects of marijuana, say that, this is a woman that would say things like, well, inactive marijuana, it can make you sleepy and tired, so you're still impaired, again, 24 hours later. And I mean, no other scientist in the world, I guess, except for the most politicized scientists, would agree with her. And that's the point, is that she would pick up these small tidbits from politicized science and say, oh, yeah, you're definitely impaired. I mean, she would say you're impaired at 1 or 2 and refuse to acknowledge the long-term user thing. So it's definitely a big deal. There's all sorts of investigations going on now. And on behalf of NORML, I'm pursuing an open records request to try to get all the evidence of what role this woman had in setting this standard. And we are trying to go to legislators. In fact, I'm going tonight to speak with some to ask them to reconsider this standard based on this scandal. And we're hoping that they will. I mean, the standard is going to guarantee that innocent people will be convicted. That's the only thing I know about it. Everything else is uncertain.
Now, as far as her, her misconduct on the stand and all these cases, that I can see where there's a legal avenue to get some people's pleas and cases overturned on that. Do we have a legal leg here to get the law itself overturned, or is this more appealing to the conscience of the legislators?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there are going to be some people that try to undo their convictions. We are going to appeal to the conscience of the legislators. As far as directly overturning the law, I guess the problem with that is unless your law is sort of race-based or, protected class-based, that all the government has to do is just show there's any kind of rational basis for this thing. And again, what I think the point of this debate is that the science is unclear. There's some people that would say, oh, yeah, you're definitely impaired at 5 nanograms. There's others that would disagree. And so I think the likelihood of a direct challenge to the law taking it down is not, well, let me say it this way, on the basis of some sort of irrationality is not likely. But the way this will get litigated is the other test in criminal cases or any court case. If you want to introduce scientific evidence, you do have to show it's sufficiently reliable. It's called the Daubert test. There's a couple other names for it. depending on where you live. But the bottom line is that, yes, that's another way that we could litigate this through criminal cases and have a court rule that the science is not clear and therefore the standard can't be applied, and it couldn't be admitted in court that you're impaired at that level. So no one's gone that far yet, and I'm hoping somebody will. But again, that takes a deep-pocketed, rich defendant who's willing to spend 15 or 20 grand or more money to hire experts and probably go, they might even spend 50 grand to go through all the appeals processes. And there's not many defendants out there that want to be the chariot that carries everybody with them. So, I don't know. That may be several years off to actually get that kind of a ruling, but it is possible.
Sean, you said this was kind of the zombie bill that will not die, and I'd heard reports that prior to its passage, prosecutors are getting like 90% conviction rates on DUIs. So what is feeding this zombie? What makes it so politically powerful that it got through?
Well, obviously, it's the legalization of marijuana and the legalization of medical marijuana in Colorado. The phenomenon in the late 2000s were that people were getting pulled over with a new sense for the first time in their life of entitlement to marijuana. No longer were they criminals and bad people. They had a red card. They had a medical marijuana card. And cops would say, hey, I smell marijuana. And these drivers would say, sure you do, because I'm a medical marijuana patient. Here it is. And there's so many stories of cops saying, this guy just stuck it in my face. And imagine being a drug warrior for 40 years, a cop that is not used to dealing with legal drugs like marijuana and having it stuck in your face. I mean, their reaction was, all right, punk, out of the car and up against the wall. I mean, there's no doubt about it that was part of it. And also, as you said, the conviction rate is so high, but there were individual instances of, great defense attorneys like myself, Sean McAllister, McAllisterLawOffice.com, that would go to court, and shameless plug, and would, argue that this isn't clear and there's no clear standard. And so there was a combination of it being legal, of DAs basically just not wanting to have to fight this issue and preferring to have an easy standard, and then some baseless claims. Again, once medical marijuana became prominent, they started collecting more data on THC in the blood, and these baseless claims over the last few years that, marijuana in the system has increased by 100 times since medical marijuana was legalized. And again, the point here is that sort of before the medical marijuana boom, people weren't regularly testing for, is there THC in the blood or urine? And these results, they were exaggerating. Well, the point is that there wasn't a systematic way of collecting that data. And so sometimes it would be a coroner who sampled the urine. We know that urine results can just show use in the last 30 days. There's no indication that there's any systematic, no one could tell us those increase in THC in the blood. Was that active THC? Was it inactive? Metabolized, whatever. And so, those statistics I felt were dishonest and they weren't fact-based, and they were just, this hodgepodge of statistics. But that was the fear tactic. And sort of the reactionary institutional response is, oh God, marijuana is legal, so we have to do something about driving, even though for all other Schedule I drugs, cocaine, heroin, all prescription drugs, Adderall, Oxycontin, those drugs, there is no standard for any other drug. And there doesn't have to be, because the law just basically says if you drive impaired, you're guilty. And as you said, they were getting all these convictions anyway. So I always say it was sort of a, DAs want to be lazy and get off on Friday at 2 kind of bill, because they just didn't want to do the work to look at the science and have to have an honest dialogue about it. They wanted an easier way of getting convictions. I can't imagine it could get any easier, but this law has made it easier to convict people, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Going back to the woman who's in charge of the toxicology lab, one of our lawyers in the live chat room had a couple questions. Wanted to know, number one, was she testifying for other lab cases outside of cannabis DUI? And number two, how soon before she starts work with the recreational regulatory agency?
The regulatory agency. Well, Miss Burbach is a 30-year state employee, And really the story is that she let the game get to her, because, you know, it's true that defense attorneys would hammer her on the stand and what's your real qualifications. And she said she was a toxicologist, but she had a chemistry degree, and she just allowed that to get to her, to where it really did become an us versus them thing for her. Mm-hmm. You know, as the investigation showed, that she was celebrating victories and celebrating convictions. I mean, an independent scientist wouldn't celebrate a conviction. They wouldn't care. They would just be there to tell the facts. But yeah, she did testify in many contexts outside of DUI marijuana. And, you know, I can give you other examples, the ways in which her interpretation, it wasn't so much that the lab results, the nanogram level or the BAC level, was doctored. I mean, there have been scandals at that lab in the past, and there's indications of poor training and poor security on the samples, so all sorts of problems. But it was more that the interpretation was biased. And, you know, another example of that is I had a case where it was cocaine in the blood, again, inactive cocaine, which can be in the blood for 48 hours or longer. And, you know, her explanation was, oh, yeah, cocaine. You use cocaine 8 days later. 8 days later, you are still impaired. 8
Wow.
days. I'm like, wow, that's a big line. That must have been a big caterpillar, whatever they call it. So, you know, that's an example of how she would just say these things, more like the inactive cannabis, that, oh yes, inactive cocaine makes you sleepy and irritable. You know, as if there was a difference between that and you were up late cramming for an exam and just tired. Is that the new standard, that we're impaired now for cramming for a test because we're tired? So, you know, she would just say these crazy things. But yeah, she testifies in all sorts of contexts. I don't expect to see her back anywhere else. This is, not only did she get fired or have to resign, but the entire head of our health department just resigned.
Wow.
And we think it was in part because of this scandal. He certainly looked bad in the press on this thing when he went on TV and sort of laughed about it. Yeah, Chris Urbina, Dr. Chris Urbina, the executive director of the entire health department for our state, 2 weeks after the scandal breaks, resigns. And actually his resignation was related to the lab scandal, but also due to the poor regulation that many see of the medical marijuana rules and medical marijuana patient database. And so, you know, he had other problems, but I mean, I don't see Cindy Burdock's name is, you know, been pretty well discredited as a result of this.
Yeah. Well, Sean,
and you know, obviously I have, you know.
Oh, sorry, Sean, just have to wrap things up here. We're out of time for the segment, but I wanted to give you a chance to do the shameless plug one more time.
Yeah, definitely. Sean McAllister, DUI attorney extraordinaire, criminal defense attorney extraordinaire in Denver, Colorado. McAllisterLawoffice.com. McAllister.
All right, we'll be right back with the Radical Rant.
You're
Thanks, Sean.
tuned into the Russ Belville
Thanks,
Show,
Russ.
the voice of the marijuana nation.